So I've got two friends here that I've just met. We did a video together about, freedom of speech and things like that. So where are you guys from?
We're from the States, from Georgia.
Cool. And I guess your husband and wife, you look like it?
Yes, we are.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to talk about suffering and how you can overcome suffering. I'm going to share some ideas, and just so if people haven't watched my videos, I'm a Muslim and we barely talk, so I might as well do this quick intro, which is I'm a Muslim who tries to make Islamic ideas available, easily accessible to non-Muslims as well, because they're principles that can make life happier for everybody. I believe in love for all and hatred for none, making everybody's my brother, sister, auntie and uncle and things like that. So I don't have prejudice or hate towards it. I just want to help everybody. That's the idea. So here's an interesting idea. There's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the actual experience, physical experience of something, and suffering is how you approach it. So let's say there's two people studying to become doctors, and one person wants to become a doctor just for the money, and the other one wants to become a doctor because he really genuinely wants to help people. So the person who's just doing it for the money, he's going through pain when he's studying, and the other person's enjoying it. So they're relative experiences, and people might say that might not apply for more extreme situations like people dying, but there are literally people who welcome dying even in a cause they believe in. How do you feel about that?
As far as dying, I think that there are people that welcome it for a cause, like they were a martyr. Or we've just been listening to Dr. King's book, a biography about him. He said he very well realized that he may die, and but he was going to do what he thought was right. So I understand that there are folks like that. My own views of dying is that everybody dies. It's something that we could die today, so we have to be ready to die. Yeah. And one way, if you come to terms with that, one reason I think people suffer is they don't come to terms with that. They don't come to terms with everybody, including them. We all are going to die, and we don't know when exactly. And once you come to terms with that, then you can appreciate so much more the life you have, the moment you have, the moment I have here with you. I can be so appreciative of that because I know that tomorrow I may not have that at all. It makes me really treasure it.
Yeah, so I think Martin Luther King said something along the lines of, if you haven't found a reason, a cause to die for, then it's not. You haven't got a life worth living for. I'm mixing it up between Einstein. He said similar things.
King did say something like that.
Yeah. So Einstein, even Nietzsche said things like, "If you have a why, you can get through any how." Yeah. So there's a lot of people who realize this. I mean, how do you feel about that? Any thoughts?
Yes, I think it's important to have a passion rather than maybe a cause, but I'm a professor and I encourage my students to find a passion regardless of the salary. So that gets to what you were pointing out about becoming a doctor because you want to help people, not because of the money. So I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so the next part of what I'm going to do, and this is not to be discriminatory, but to get people to become happier more, is that I would say atheism leads to more suffering, and there's a logical reasoning behind that. There's, again, I just mentioned in our last video, Viktor Frankl. He's a sort of famous psychologist, and he said you need meaning to be happy, right? Now in our modern age, we're told a lot of lies are inconsistent with how human beings work and modern understanding of psychology. Whether you're a believer in God or not, people have the idea that you can live a meaningless life and be happy. But the statistics are showing the exact opposite. As our society becomes more godless, depression is going through the roof. So it shows we need meaning, and also people think you can create your own meaning. But if you're an atheist, what you're saying is the world is random, there is no point to anything, and you cannot tell yourself at the same time that you can create a meaning. You cannot say on one side of your brain there is no point in life, at the same time carve out a meaning out of nothingness. So I think I've said maybe too many ideas, but all I'm trying to say in short, and I see this between the difference between myself and a lot of atheists, And even people like John Peterson, who says he acts as if God is alive, but he's not convinced God is alive, right? Or God is real. As soon as you stop realizing God exists, life becomes incredibly difficult and every tiny thing becomes painful. But as a Muslim, I find that Muslims are far more peaceful and happy all the time.
Okay, I disagree with you. Okay, I have read those statistics too, and I do think there are people when they are not able to find meaning, when they're not able to find love, when they're not able to appreciate nature, when they're not able to appreciate a conversation like we're having, then yes, they do suffer a lot. Because, and oftentimes it's because they've been brought up with the idea that of God and only God can get this. And when they reject God, then they have nothing in their mind. Now, I am someone who was brought up in that way too, as a Christian, that about God and Jesus, and eventually came to the point where I am a naturalist. I take my meaning in the natural world, but I have found a way to have meaning, and I have never been happier than I am in my 60s and 70s. I'm now 72. I've never been happier than when I now find meaning in the natural world. I do agree you need to find meaning, but you can find meaning in the natural world. It doesn't have to be supernatural, and not everybody does that. I do agree that if you can just accept wholeheartedly some story that has been told to you as a child, then sometimes you can have a happy life with that. My view on it is, and I share with my relatives, many who are believers, if it makes you happy and a better person, good for you. You stay on that path. If you are like me, maybe you're born with the gift of faith. I think we have different gifts. You're born with the gift of faith. I was born with the gift of a questioning mind. It's not that one gift is better than the other. We just have different gifts, and we have to find our happiness within our own gifts. That's my belief.
Okay. I'm only a bit confused because we met a few seconds ago and you said you're a Unitarian. Does that mean you believe in some sort of God? Maybe not a bearded man in the sky, but maybe a power or a force that's God? What does that mean?
Let me explain.
And I'll ask you as well in a bit, just to get...
All right. The Unitarians in Europe, initially, were people who rejected the Trinity. Okay, they said there's one God. They were more like you all. Okay, they said there's one God. There's not Jesus is not God. Okay, Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is a prophet. Jesus is a teacher, maybe, but Jesus is not God. Those were the European Unitarians. Eventually, in the United States, the Puritan folks over there were some that came into the Enlightenment phase, and they were beginning to become more open to studying other faiths, studying other views, studying science, etc. Some of the people that were their detractors within their group said, "You're just like those Unitarians in Europe." So finally one of them claimed it. Channing said, and he preached a sermon on Unitarian Christianity. He still claimed to follow the ideas of Jesus, but he said, no, okay, we'll claim Unitarianism. And then eventually they got with the Universalists, who were the No Hell Church. Everybody's going to heaven. 1961, these two very liberal groups, many of them already had become humanists, they got together, and they were the Unitarian Universalists. They decided they couldn't even agree within their own group. They surely couldn't agree together. They decided not to have a creed. So we have no creed. There are some who believe in God. There are others who do not. There are some who... as far as a power, I do think that love is powerful. I think when you and I love one another, that's a powerful thing, So what I do, if I'm singing about God or something, I'm translating that to the power of our love and compassion with one another.
I'm just trying to get a sense of, maybe I'll ask you, just to spread it out. I think you both believe roughly in the same thing. Do you believe there's some sort of power or intelligent power or something that is creating all these amazing things? So when I look at a leaf, I don't just look at a leaf, I see that as the most advanced solar panel ever to be created. So I mean it's hard to appreciate. Do you believe in some sort of power or something in the universe?
Well, is that I'm currently reading again. I think there's a wonderful book you might like called "Good Without God" by the chaplain at Harvard, and I think it's important to say, not to say do you believe in God, but what do you believe about God, and that's important. And I think that the thing that I like about Unitarian Universalist Church is I might be sitting next to a Muslim in our service, and on the other side of me, there might be a Christian. And in a modern society, we have to do that. We have no choice, because there's no way we're all going to go to one creed. I mean, history's pretty clear and it's pretty bloody. So we've got to sit and work with each other. And I know in Berlin, for example, there's an imam, there's a Catholic priest, and a rabbi, and they're all worshiping in the same building, recognizing that we've got to do this. And that may make everyone uncomfortable, but we've got to get there.
So, I mean, can you answer your great question? What do you believe about God, so we can understand where you guys are coming from?
Well, I believe that if you look at things like the Webb telescope, which is showing us billions of galaxies out there, does there have to be a creator for that? I personally believe no, that we could just have a big bang and that's what we came from. And we know from psychology that humans have a real struggle with random things. We have to have something that causes this or that. We can't get over the idea that there is no cause. It just happened. And so I understand some people, no, there has to be a cause for what I'm seeing in the Webb telescope.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So, I mean, the main topic is how can we avoid suffering? And you brought up lots of interesting things like can there be good without God? And then you also made a point about me having a belief versus you having some reasoning. But I would say the top scientists of all time, Newton, Einstein, they believed in God, right? And it's most reasonable. I would, at least for myself, I would say my belief, or I would say more like realization, because God exists whether I believe in God or not, right? Is that it's the most reasonable thing. Like you said, human beings have a difficulty. I'm not going to go into the atheism argument too much, but I think it's a little bit important too. The realization that God is there. Gives a potential for a clear direction that we're all supposed to have, like a creator that's made it. Yes. So I'll give a simple argument very quickly, but I don't want to go into it too much. The reason why human beings have a problem with randomness and there being no cause is because there's no experience of human beings where things happen, anything happens in an organized fashion randomly. Like if I said that phone that we're recording on was created randomly, nobody would believe you, because nobody has that experience. We don't have to go to the factory to see the person who made it. That's nobody's, and it's against the laws of science as well. There's a second, I'm overdoing it, but the laws of science, second law of thermodynamics tells you that things naturally fall apart. It's called entropy. But anyway, I'll let you respond to that, and then I'll go into is there good without God, because that's relevant to the guidance that God gives us better than we can give ourselves to avoid suffering. But that will be, I'll let you respond.
Well, yes, in terms of the scientists, yes, some of the older scientists back when did say they believe in God. Many of the more current scientists do not. And so I think there's an evolution of learning and an evolution of thought processes as well. Now, in terms of evolution, I do think that we evolved, and I do think that leaf evolved, and I do think there are things that evolved that are good. There are things that had evolved that we would deem not so good as well. And so it's not that. And then you say, if there's a God, why then is there evil in the world? Why do bad things happen to good people, etc.? Well, my point is, things happen bad and good to me and you, whether you're a believer or not. We have to accept that. Life is not fair. You have to accept that there is going to be pain. Now, what you can do is, as you have pointed out, is how am I going to deal with the pain that I know is coming? You see me with a walking cane. Okay, I have a hurt foot. How am I going to deal with it? Well, I could just sit home, but no, I got a cane, even though it's sort of embarrassing, and I'm walking around enjoying the day-to-day. So I just say we're going to have pain. We can decide how we're going to deal with it to the best of our ability.
Cool. So you've reminded me about why I'm here in the first place, why we're having the discussion, which is I believe in solutions rather than just talking about problems. So I'll talk about the verse of the Holy Quran. It says, "O soul at peace, return to your God, well pleased with him, and he will be well pleased with you." Chapter 89, verses 28 to 29. And this is for a lot of Muslims don't count Bismillah as the first verse. So I'm counting it as the proper way, I would say. The whole Quran has got nothing extra. What's that got to do with anything? There are many stages of personal development. Okay, and this is the final stage where you have true freedom, where you are most in line or at peace with your design. So I'll give you a simple example. If you're walking backwards, you're not at peace with your design because you don't have eyes at the back of your head, your muscles are not designed for it, you're going to harm yourself, right? So the more, and we can work out our design by looking at our biology. So the more you are at peace with your design, the less you're going to have suffering. And we are not the experts of our design. So in the Quran, it gives you reasons for everything it teaches. So it doesn't say, I'm the boss, you do this. It gives all sorts of reasons. So for example, alcohol, it says like the harm outweighs the bad. The harm outweighs the good for the use of drinking alcohol, right? So we look at this, the overall social benefit of not drinking alcohol. So what I'm saying to sort of summarize is the benefit of having Islam in particular, because of a lot of the other religions historically been known to be tampered with by human beings, is that you've got an instruction manual, the self-help guide by your creator who knows you best, and he's just telling you things that work, and we've shown historically that they do work. All sorts of strange things, like even circumcision, been known now, proved to be right after thousands of years. So internally, psychologically, people like Viktor Frankl, he said, God is a super meaning. You need God to find meaning and be happy. And also externally, through God's advice, not force, you will live a life that's more at peace with your design, and then you'll be happier. And if you're an atheist, you reject all those things, and I find that's why atheists are suffering so much. So that kind of goes into the thing about you said about, can you be good without God? You cannot be good without God, because there's so much confusion. People don't even know what the difference between men and women are nowadays, and people are suffering because of that, taking drugs to become women when they're men and harming themselves permanently. So there's a lot of things thrown in, but anyway, should I give him a chance?
Yes,
because
give him a chance.
I just want to spread it out.
Well, one of your analogies I thought was interesting, because in the States I regularly run backwards, which is very good for your back, by the way, which is why I do it. So, and people comment, hey, you're running backwards, not forwards, but it's actually quite good for muscles in your body. But I think we clearly disagree, but I think the important thing is that in our church, you would be welcome to come and explain what you've just said. Would we be welcome to come to a mosque and explain our point of view? I don't think so. And I think in a modern society, we must get to the point where we can share and disagree in friendship, which we are here today.
Yeah, so I'm glad you just reminded me of something. So historically, we've had, I think, both churches and churches and synagogues inside a mosque in Andalusia, which is ancient Islamic Spain, and a lot of the good things that are done between religions don't get attention. So I'm part of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. I don't know if you've heard of the phrase "love for all, hatred for none." Have you ever heard of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community around the world?
No.
Love for all, hatred for none. That phrase.
That's great.
Yeah. So we always have interfaith meetings all the time between different religions and connection.
I come into a mosque.
Of course you can. We should change. Yeah. Like yesterday we had a meeting which was about engineering. We had a person from some Scientologist or something. He came along and he talked about his stuff. And even Prophet Muhammad.
Not all. You're a particular. You've said that we have the guidebook. We have the book. We know what to do. But you've just said too that even within Islam, there are different views about these things. Your group has a different view than some of the others.
You're right. We're even persecuted, right, for our views of being nice to everybody. And even within the teaching the Prophet Muhammad, some Christians visited him and they said, we have to have a break from our meeting. We have to go and pray. And he said, why don't you pray in the mosque? Because It's
Right.
historically allowed, but unfortunately, modern day Muslims don't follow that.
That's right.
I mean, the simple answer. I mean, you want to create unity within the whole world. I think there's a God, and I think it's logical to believe there's a God because just like logically is
And that's
to,
fine for you. Yes.
yeah, and so I don't think God has forgotten us and has a plan, and we're part of that revolution, the love revolution that's going to solve that. But anyway, that's kind of me.
And can you accept us as we are as
Of
well?
course, yeah. So,
That's good.
and we have to because we're only followers of God, and God says in the Quran, "There's no compulsion in religion." So how can we compel anybody when God says we're not allowed to?
That's right.
Anyway, you were going to say something?
No.
Yeah. So
I
we
think-
appreciate that.
Yeah, well,
So,
thank you very much for the
thank
great
you.
conversation.
Thank
I
you.
loved
Good
it.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.